All right, hello everyone. This is Josh, also known as Yashu. You're just tuning into episode 81 of the TLOY Talks podcast. You can get it on all platforms: Spotify, Buzzsprout, Apple Podcasts, like much more and all that. You could like definitely tap in onto like a lot of the pages too. Lens of Yashu, TLOY Talks and news and much more. And I'm just gonna get like started right here. So I actually met him at an event back in like December of like 2022 and all that. He has performed with the likes of like Offbeat, Smitty, and all that, Vile Merc, Kinza, Prezi, like even like performed at like many community events like all around the city and all that. He's set to perform at an event like later on after the podcast with Realize and much more. Um, it's kind of like a little bit the promo for a bit too for that event too. Like definitely check out like the highlights like once like this podcast like drops and all that. And yeah, he's released a lot of music, such as like Trial to Trails, Angel Numbers, Ready to Love, Lay a Flower, Cloudy Sunset, Hold It Down, and much more. We have DRAN&THELAND on the pod. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, bro. I appreciate you reaching out and having me on the podcast today.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I think the relationship stems like from that specific show too, and like, I've been like checking out like the music and like everything else too, and like, I've been liking the sound so far and all that, and like, I was like re-listening to it again like a while back, and I kind of noticed like, the subject matters and like everything else is like pretty like dope to hear. It's kind of like amazing to see and all that because you don't see that in like a lot of like artists and all that. So
I appreciate that, bro. I feel like, yeah, the music is a lot deeper than people make it seem to be,
yeah,
and in terms of what we can really do with it. I feel like it's a tool that we can use to create healing. It's a tool that we can use to
yeah.
really create realities for what we want in this life. So it's just with my direction and how I use music, it's just a tool for activation and
Yeah.
ascendance.
Nah, for sure, man. Like kind of like a therapy, like in a way and all that. And
Definitely.
it's amazing to see like
Definitely.
even with healing and all that. So and I definitely want to get like started for a bit too. So you were like born in the city, right? Like in Toronto and all that.
Yeah, so born and raised in Scarborough.
All right.
Yeah, but I actually went to elementary school and high school up in Markham.
Oh, true.
Yeah, so I had that little bit of the balance, but I always lived in Scarborough my whole life. And then, yeah, bro. Yeah.
And I'm guessing like the environment in the childhood was like very like amazing, or was it like kind of like different?
And that's the thing. It was such a balance because I went to a pretty rich high school, but I'm not I in no way or means formed. I grew up in Scarborough. It's
true,
like, and
Yeah.
I didn't have a really good childhood.
Yeah.
Certain things dealing with and just living a different life in those days. I was definitely not about the healing. I was
Yeah.
not about I was more
Yeah.
on that street side, of things.
Yeah.
So just learning from my past and my
Yeah.
experiences and just
Yeah.
going forth and seeing how I can actually be a better version of myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm.
Because I know Scarborough is like a very like a massive like community, like in terms of musicians, ball players, politicians, like everything else too. And like what I like about the like area, like even like within the city and all that, it's just because there's like a lot of like community there. There's like a lot of like foundation. There's like programs like Rise and all that. There's programs like UTSC and all that. There's like many studios in the city, like Midnight Studios and all that, major music and much more. And like, would you say it was like kind of like an amazing part of like music, like like just as like an industry end at the time, or was it like just only a community like back then?
Honestly, it was like only community. But I was so blessed because when I was growing up, I had the opportunity to see Rise. Like when I was 16, I was being able to see these amazing performers, spoken word artists, people who are actually living that life now in terms of like just completely making their whole living off of just music. So I was exposed to that at a very early age of like 16. So I was just like, this really opened my mind and seeing like the possibility of music for me as an artist, as a career, and just like for my life.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know Randall now he's like the poet like laureate like for Ontario and all that, and it's kind of amazing to see like on how he built that platform to give like people from the community like a scene and like a voice to like even like showcase their music and all that, which is
It was so inspiring, bro.
Yeah.
It's honestly something to reflect upon constantly. It's not something that it's because he was just a kid from Scarborough too,
Yeah.
and he made his dreams a reality
yeah,
in
no,
so many
sure.
different aspects.
Yeah.
Not just a career wise. So it's just it's something that I'm still inspired to this day.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And to get back more onto your like story for a bit too, like I know you said like you had like, different issues like growing up, like getting more into like the street stuff and all that, but like even prior to that until like adulthood, like what were you like kind of like growing up?
What was I kind of like?
Yeah.
Pretty rebellious. I was a pretty
Sure.
rebellious kid. I was always outside, always just having fun, partying.
Yeah.
But also just learning about myself. I think when I was around 18, then I kind of had like my certain like awakening, I would say, and just tapping into more conscious things, understanding the world for what it really is, and then seeing like that internal reflection of myself, and then what I can do outside of that. So from that age, I'm just like, oh wait, like I can't be in the streets no more.
Yeah.
Like I can't. This is not me. And that was the biggest thing. I'm like, this is not me. So it was a journey just to find myself in that aspect, and then that was just been such a blooming trail
Yeah.
after, and then like so much inspiration from songs and so many opportunities came. So
Yeah. For sure. And like, even like with music too, like what like introduced you to like music in a sense too, and like who were you like listening to like growing up and all that?
So growing up, I listened to mostly like reggae, R&B, hip hop. Just like those are kind of like my main influences, but I touch on a lot of different
Sure.
genres. And my family is a very musical family on my dad's side. So I was seeing people playing bands, people doing karaoke all my life, and then like growing up, just being exposed to hip hop.
True.
That was a huge thing, because then that was like my first love in an aspect. I was just like, yo, this it resonates with me so deeply that I can just like, I feel like I can be myself in this aspect, and it just takes me somewhere else.
True.
So yeah, learning what hip hop was, I just wanted to be that.
Yeah.
And then I started writing, I started getting in the studio, started recording my stuff at like early ages of 16 to 18.
Yeah.
And then from there, I got some really opportunities to take it seriously and professionally.
Yeah,
So
no,
then
sure. And like, when you mentioned like reggae, like in hip hop, like when you like listen to it, when you were younger, like at like that point, like when you were like 18 and older, did you like tend to understand like the subject matters and like lyrics more like from
Yes.
it was like as opposed to before and all that? Because I know some people would like look at it as like, like low like value like content, like even like when they say like legalize it with marijuana, even though when they talk about like nature and all this stuff too, and like even with hip hop they'll say money, cars, drugs, all that type of stuff too, but then there's like, gentrification, everything else too, and all that, and like other subject matters. So
I feel like it was a really big shift when I could really understand what people were saying, because the music always attracted me based on the sound,
yeah.
and the feeling it gives you, that's what it attracts me.
Yeah.
And that's what attracted me very on. But when I was able to actually pick apart and sit down with things and like learn what double entendres are, learn what metaphors are, like, you use them in not in a literary way, but in an actual, like in a sonic way, then it was just a different thing that opened up a lot more of my mind.
Yeah, no, because I know like with some songs too, like when I was like younger, like I only understood it like in a surface level like aspect, not only until like when I got older and like I understood like the whole like complexity of like the lyrics on like what they're mentioning, like even with the subject matter too. So yeah, it's kind of interesting too on like how we even like break down like certain things too. So yeah.
Yeah, and then it goes deeper, because then you see how songs are written, and then you see the intention of the artist or the songwriter who actually wrote that song.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, they sung this line this way and then brought it back this way for a specific reason, which all has a story behind it.
Yeah.
It's not just this one level, and there's so many complexities that you can really get deep into when you really dive into the music.
Nah, for sure, man. And to even like get into like jumpstart like music and all that, what inspired you to become like a rapper and artist and like even like take it like seriously in a sense?
Just a love for it, bro. I feel like it's just something that's part of me. I don't feel like it's separate, like it's just, I feel like even if I didn't want to take it seriously, I'd be singing every day. I'd be rapping every day just because that's who I am. But I had some opportunities come to me at a very early age that that people actually believed in me. They thought, oh, I could actually really do something, really be something. So then from there, I was just like, oh wow, like that gave me a perspective of growth, of like what I could really do.
Yeah.
And like, it's just not me being self-critical. It's not me just overthinking. It's like, oh, this is actually someone's actually validating me, you know? And then from there, my own internal validation grew because I'm like, oh yeah, like I really do this shit. Like I really do this shit, you know? Like I throw events all the time. I can cipher for hours. I can make songs on the spot. Like, you know, it's really something that I wanted to just grow with.
Yeah, nah, I know what you mean, man. And I know, like, in some cases too, there's like, you know, like artists or genres that have like, you know, an influence like for artists and all that too. So who would be like those like influences and all that, and like in the future, who would you like want to like tap in someday, like musically?
I'd say like overall influences of my life definitely been like some of the likes of Bill Withers, Bob Marley, like Outkast, Chaos.
Not true.
Like, you know, a little bit more on the funky lines. I like people who weren't afraid to experiment with music. That's really what drew my ear. And definitely like J. Cole, like definitely lyricists that were up and coming. And but in terms of who would I like to work with going forward, or like maybe get the opportunity with, I would definitely want to work with like Smino. Like Cole would be dope. Anderson .Paak.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Anderson .Paak. Bad Bad Not Good. But they're dope. They're super dope. And many more. I just can't think of them too much right now.
Yeah, no, like when you said like Chaos and all that too, you know, like not a lot of like people like tend to mention him too, because I know he kind of like paved the way for like Toronto music to be heard like on a bigger like level and all that too. So like, do you feel like he has like played a part in like, you know, shifting the change, like even with Canadian music and all that?
Bro, for me, he was such a huge influence, and like he was a pioneer. Like back in the day on Flow 93.5, you would hear all you would hear is Chaos. You know, all you would hear is Chaos. And it was just like the way his production was and the way his style was is like, this is very unconventional. Like it's not like people hear this all the time, but when you hear it, you're like, oh, like this is something different about this. So like I feel like he paved a way for the indie scene more, to be honest, because it was like there's hip hop nowadays, but there's still not many people doing it like Chaos in that aspect where they're very experimental with their vocals, with how their delivery, just like, and how they kind of word songs in their content. It's not it was just a very inspirational thing.
For sure. Because like when you listen to like, you know, Crab in a Bucket and like the Natalie Portman song and all that, you know, I noticed like, you know, like even like with the whole like styles and like even like just with like the melody and all that, I could see it like in other influences too with like other artists, like, you know, with JPEG Mafia and all that, and like Childish, like Gambino, Anderson .Paak and much more and all that. Like even like Goldlink too, like I kind of noticed like even with the sound and like what he brought, like it was like brought in on other levels, but like in a different aspect. So I definitely was amazed to like see that.
You know, that funk, that rock, that influence, but within the hip hop, it was like it was something great. And it's funny because it all goes back to the root of hip hop, because like a lot of the root of hip hop was actually a segue from disco. You know, and like people scratching on disco records. And then, you know, so
I know what you mean, man.
It's really, it's all a cycle, you know?
I know what you mean. And, you know, to even like speak more on like creative process. So like, what's that like when making music, and what would like a day in the studio be like for you?
It really depends on what we're trying to create. So it's like if I'm just going in the studio, like if I have really no intention of just being able to create, then I'll just sit with, if it's with the producer, and then be like, yo, what do we feel like today? You know? And then just cook up something. And the magic really starts from there. But if it's like someone sends me a verse or something, like I have to be more technical or like more focused on the subject matter and like what I'm creating, then it's I feel like my route is very different. Because if it's those type of songs, I like to be alone. I like to just sit and I like to write, and I go over it 1,000 times, like over and over and over and over, until I really create something. And then I'll bring it back and then go into the studio. So
for sure. And do you have any, like, I know like with some people like in the studio and all that, like they'll have like certain studio rules, like, you know, like, you know, not bring like too many people over and all that too, or like, you know, if you're bringing like licks or like weed and all that, like make sure, you know, it's like a BYOB and all that, or, you know, just like with the engineer and producer, you know, like just only like good beats and stuff like that only. I don't know if you have like certain rules and stuff like that and all that.
Yeah, I definitely have a way I conduct myself in the studio. I feel like I'm very carefree, but I'm also serious. So it's like if you're being distracting, if you're just doing things that's not productive to the session, then like, bro, why are you here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no disrespect, but it's like, if you're not here to create or add some input or something, it's like you can be here, but don't be distracting. Like, you know, have some purpose, you know, to why you're actually like here. And if you just want to support the homie and smoke some weed, that's cool too. Just, you know, do that. Just do that.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of like the element and all that, I don't know if you like kind of like do like licks or like smoke some weed to be in the element, or are you like mainly like sober like in the creative and like recording process?
It's both.
Oh, true.
It's both. I don't think I need weed or anything to write or to sing or do anything like that. But it's definitely a fun time. And it's definitely like, you know, it definitely gets you in a groove. But I feel like even with writing songs, it's better to be a little bit more conscious and clear, because then you can actually just tune into things. But it's funny because when you're high, you do hear melodies, like
Yeah.
you hear different melodies.
Yeah.
So it's a really bit of both, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yo, I wanted to ask like this question for a bit too, like when we were talking about chaos. Would you actually do like a song with him someday and all
I
that?
would love to. That's actually like on my list of artists that I would love to collaborate with. He's definitely like on like high on that list.
Ah, true, true.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. And you know, when I was like doing my research for a bit too, like I was like finding like your music for SoundCloud, like just
Yeah.
recently and all that, and like you went by Dren, Hain, and just Dren and all that.
Yeah.
So what were like the backstories like in and meanings behind those like names, like when you first had those?
Yo, I honestly didn't even know you would like know about those names. This guy's like Nardwall. But yeah, Dran Hain, that was like one of my second stage names as a rapper. Like when I was growing up, it was like one of my first like serious ones. It was more about just just finding a balance within myself. I didn't have like a name that I kind of wanted to go off of or anything. So I just kind of created something from there. And like I really like Dragon Ball Z and Super Saiyan. So then it just rhymed. I was like Hain, Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
And then it was just like from there, it was it was just a bridge.
Ah, true. And what made you like even change those names to only like Dren and the Land, only and all that?
Yeah, so from Dran Hain to just Dran, it was about me wanting to be more vulnerable in my music. Like just say, yo, this is literally just Dran. You know what I'm saying? And like just as in the aspect of justice too, you know? So it was just me just wanting to lay all my cards out and be like, this is me. And then from there, just Dran became DRAN&THELAND because that was me wanting to understand my truest nature and like really tapping into that, like seeing who I am. Cause I'm like, this is just Dran, but no, it's like, it's way deeper than that. Yeah, like I'm really tapped into the root of things, you know, and like understanding my purpose on this earth, you know. So it was a transition that I had to take, and I'm glad I took because it opened a lot more doors for me and as a brand as well, because I'm really into herbalism and gardening and like nature things. So it was just helped me build my brand and aspect that I wanted to.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I guess it's like kind of like more of an appropriate name and all that too, because like even with your background and your culture with nature and like positivity and all that too, and just to kind of like headship for a bit too. So even like listening to stuff like, you know, it's like more like lyrical boom bap. Like I've noticed like even like with the influence and stuff like that, and like as you said, you know, like the content speaks more on like nature, having a healthy lifestyle, you know, positivity and all that. Like was that aspect of your music like a major important part in who you are like as a person in like some way? And I know like you already talked about like how that like came about too, like when you like got older and all that. So
Yeah, it was definitely mostly a change within myself. At 18, I experienced like a life death situation for myself, and my health was really bad. So I had to find what I could do for myself to actually find some self healing, and that was through different mediums, like my actions of like what I'm actually doing, from like what I'm taking in, what am I putting in my body. It was a huge part actually. It's just I feel like my music is a reflection of my life and things that I've gone through and I'm currently going through and maybe might go through again. It was really me wanting to create timeless music that people can resonate and relate to.
yeah.
Yeah, and then just promoting what I'm really about.
Yeah, for
you know,
sure.
because I'm just like, yo, like, what am I really?
Yeah,
What am I really? And then finding that, it just helped me bridge out and
yeah.
connect more. Yeah.
For sure. Was it something that like led to having a community with you, like a community of fans or like listeners or like even like artists like of that mind, like when you like dived into your music like later on and all that?
Definitely, definitely. I feel like the conscious scene in Toronto is actually very huge and it's very interconnected.
Yeah,
Like the people who are really about, healing and really about empowerment of life and empowerment of people. It was just a stone, like a stepping stone. Even like being through Rise and seeing all these great thought leaders, these great spoken word artists, these great artists in general, and then seeing how like that transitioned out and then putting myself out there.
yeah,
And like even like the event we're doing tonight, it's the Sunset Cipher, is the Moonrise Cipher, but it comes from the Sunset Cipher.
yeah.
And that was a community I found 5 years ago. And then we kept running those ciphers for 5 years.
Oh, true.
Yeah.
And like even like in that like moment too for a bit, like at what moment have you noticed like even with the music that it like healed like someone or healed like people like in a way and all that?
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that's the biggest gratification. Like that's like the biggest it's the most satisfying moment you can actually get as an artist when someone's just like, "Yo, that song like really helped me through this time." And it was something that I've experienced, and I experience it constantly. It's not just a one-off thing. I had a lot of kids even tell me I'm like one of their favorite artists, and I'm
Oh,
like, I
true.
don't like I don't even think of myself like that. So it's like when people start to tap in and think and like really connect with me on that level, it helps me want to push further. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. And to kind of get back more into like the whole like SoundCloud stuff, like you've had
Mm,
like other releases like Trials to Trails and like Angel Numbers. So,
mm,
what was like the inspiration and creative process for those, and what made you decide on like releasing it on SoundCloud rather than like on other platforms?
mm. So when I released Trials to Trail, I think I was 18 or 19.
True.
Yeah. So I was going through a little bit of the journey, and I think SoundCloud was the only kind of medium we could put on at those times without having like a distributor or anything. You
Yeah,
could just share your music. So yeah, I just wanted to put something out. So I'm just like, yeah, let me drop it on SoundCloud. And then Angel Numbers was with my producer Babyface Hody.
true.
Yeah, we did that. We actually created that whole project in his house, in his studio in his house, which was really dope. And that project I did put on all streaming platforms for a bit, but then I decided to take it down within my rebrand of turning into Dran and the Land from just Dran.
True.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you've regret like releasing like those forms of like music, like even in that style, or do you feel like it had like helped you like in a way and all that like when you first started?
It's good to reflect upon it. Like it really helps me look back about my growth within this journey, and I don't regret it at all, to be honest. I feel like there's a certain time and space for that because that's the time and space I was in, but like that's why it's on SoundCloud and not
True.
Spotify, because it's like
Yeah.
I'm setting a precedent now,
Yeah, true, true. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And to speak more on the stuff like on Spotify and like all of the platforms you've had, like
Mhm.
Ready to Love, Lay a Flower, Cloudy Sunset, and like Hold It Down. And what were like the inspirations and creative processes for those?
They all have different inspirations, but to say like Lay a Flower, that was a song really about like understanding grief. I was grieving at that time, and it was a song about respect for the people that passed on and how we can really honor them, like our ancestors, people who really paved the way for us and really, because I'm a first generation Canadian.
For
My
sure.
my parents came from Guyana, and it's just like there's so much strength and there's so much resilience that comes from our families and our cultural history. So it's just like something I wanted to create for preservation of that.
Oh, nice. No, I
Mm.
like when I looked at like the meaning for that, it's like, like even just hearing it, it's like actually amazing to see and all that. And, give thanks. Like that was like also like another song that,
Mm.
it's more exclusive like on YouTube and all that. But I understand like the entire meaning, to give thanks and like affirmations to like the gods, to people who've helped throughout the way, and like to people and all that type of stuff too. And tell me more about that song and like why like releasing like a music video on YouTube rather than like on streaming platforms.
Yeah, that song is really just to give thanks and praise. Just saying give thanks to the Most High. Like there's not much we really need to do more in life than that. It's
Yeah.
just life can be really so simple, and that song is just about connecting to that because there's so much in society that clouds our judgment and clouds our decisions. But it's like when you really look within, you can find yourself and you can find the Most High.
Yeah, no, sure. And
So like even just I did a performance art video for that. It wasn't really like a music video, it was like just a live performance
sure.
video, and I was just like the beat, I wanted to change the beat. So that's why I didn't release it on all streaming platforms. But I was just like, yo, let me throw it up there. Why not?
Yeah.
And then like that's a song that I perform regularly,
Yeah.
but not like mostly a cappella, like just not on that necessary beat.
What you mean. And I think, even like with certain songs and like even the idea of like, providing thanks to like the Most High and all that, do you feel like it's something that's like lacking nowadays in like society in a way too? Or do you feel like people are becoming more thankful, like, depending on like the times and all that too, like that we're in?
I feel like in the times that we're in, it's necessary, but I feel like, there's always within the city, within anywhere that you go, there's always polarities.
Yeah.
There's always going to be people who think one way and people who think another way. People who are attuned to a certain lifestyle and people who are not. So if you want to find this, if you want to find conscious people around you, they're there. If you want to find that, it's something that you can find very easily. You just have to attune yourself to it.
Yeah.
So it is something that we see as a society that like, like people focusing on street stuff, gyaldom, saying like money, all them things. But what really gives you fulfillment? That's the biggest question we have to start to ask ourselves. What is the thing that gives you fulfillment? And it's like, it might not even be love. It might not even be your friends, your family. It might not be things that we think about. It goes way deeper than that. It goes back to the source. So it's like when I can actually provide a message and tell people to actually look within, that's what I want to do.
Yeah. And I think like even nowadays too, I feel like when I do give thanks or like when I do think about like my blessings and all that, I think about like the oxygen I'm breathing in. I'm thinking about like the air, the water, like the food, the resources and all that too. And like I am grateful that that there is like a lot of like resources too, like in any community, with lakes, with like stuff like that, like nothing like man-made and all that. And I'm glad that like it's still there, even if like people are trying to like take that down and all that too. And like I feel like the idea of like preservation is like kind of like important to even showcase like what we have like with lakes, with like sand, with grass and all that type of stuff too. So
bro, we live in one of the most abundant nations in the world in terms of natural resources.
Yeah.
And it's something we take for granted every day. Yeah. Like, oh, I can just go get fresh water. Like I can just go pick something from the back of my garden. A lot of people in the world don't have those privileges.
Yeah.
So it's like understanding our privilege in this society just makes me more grateful.
Yeah. And like yesterday I was actually driving like west to like Etobicoke and all that. And, like usually when you're on like the Queensway, like that's like starting through and all that. Like when you're at like High Park and all that, there's like the Humber like Bay like pond and all that, like the lake and all that for a bit too. Which is like kind of like a small lake and all that. But like when you reflect on it and see it, it's like amazing to see too. Like with that body of like water, it's like like it's something that we do have to like cherish like every other day and all that, and like even like value too, because nowadays too, like condos are being up and all that, and like all this other type of stuff too, and like the resources that we still have now, we have to kind of like cherish the importance of it and like seeing it like at a first-hand like glance too and all that. So
yeah, bro, natural resources are very important, and it's essential for human life. Essential.
Yeah, for sure, man. And getting back onto like topic for a bit too, you worked with like Babyface Hody and Turbo VCR of RN64 Music. So how was it like working with them? Like how did you even like manage to work with them?
Man, those are awesome producers. Those are some really awesome producers. Babyface, I met him at an event, like a local hip hop event.
Yeah.
And we just connected, became really good homies, and then we just started cooking up some music. It was very natural, very organic. And Turbo, it was actually funny because we both do capoeira.
True, true.
So that's how I met him.
Yeah.
And we didn't know we did music until one day he's just like, yo, like, you do music? And I'm like, yeah, bro, like, check out my stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I do music too. And, you know, and then from there, you know, we connected, we got into the studio, and then we just kept cooking up some really good stuff.
Yeah. And I just had him on like last year and all that too, and like it's crazy too because his I think girlfriend or wife also does like capoeira as well too, and like it's amazing to see like even like within that community too, because I know Turbo, he puts in like a lot of work with like the whole like sound, like the synthesizers and all that, and it's even like, you know, explicit like in like the music that you have like right now too, so it's amazing to see, you know.
Yeah, it was my first time like really working with modular synths
True,
and
true.
having someone produce from that, so it was really cool actually just learning from him, because I think he has a really good ear as an engineer and as a, you know, a mixer, you know, as a producer, so it was really good, and he gave me a lot of tips I could really take from the next side of my career.
What was like the advice that they like kind of gave you like in order to be successful like even in music and all that?
I feel like it's just consistency. I feel like that's the basis of really what I got. You know, there was definitely different techniques about how to record myself, you know, different sounds, how to hear high frequencies and low frequencies and mid frequencies just for myself. But I feel like the biggest thing I could really take from that is like just keep going and consistency, because I've seen like Turbo is someone who was actually able to live, you know, off his music. And that's kind of my definition as making it as an artist, you know, just being able to just completely live off of what you create. So yeah, it was a really dope experience.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, even from the music, you know, you were like experimenting even with these like genres and all that too. Was it something that kind of helped you a lot as an artist in defining your sound and like what like quality like means to you like musically and all that?
Definitely. I feel like that was really a bridge for me to explore. Like, there was no bounds in what we could create. Like, there was no borders, no boundaries. We could literally create anything we want. We just have to see what we want to create. So that's when I started kind of doing a little bit more funky stuff, a little more synthesizer stuff. And yeah, it was just like, oh, this is a whole new sound for me. Something I've never really tapped into, but it's fun. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Would you ever like try like different like sounds like one day too? Like let's say with like EDM or like even like, you know, folk music and all that too and all that, because I know some people go into like different routes too. Like Beyonce, she actually just dropped the country album, and then a lot of other people are like doing like other takes like in music and all that, like with the Weeknd with like the whole like 80s sound and all that. So
yeah, bro. Like, I feel like as an artist, you shouldn't close yourself in to being one thing, especially if you can sing and rap, which is I both do. So I'm just like, I'll never just box myself into just being in one genre. I love to tap into different things. So I'm constantly making new sounds that always sound like me, but they're different in the actual instrumentation of it. Yeah.
It's just like finding that whole like authentic like self and all that too. Like,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
It's like when Drake hops on a track, you automatically know it's him.
Yeah.
Like when you hear his voice or something, you know, even if it's completely different in the genre, you just automatically know.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because I was like doing my research about Drake, and you know, when I was like finding out like the reasons why Take Care is like the most like popular like album of like Drake and all that, a lot of people said it's like his most like authentic like project, because like that's like the experiences that he's like going through and all that, and like with the other stuff, it's like you know, he's playing like a character and all that too, and like I do notice that with like certain like projects and sounds and all that too. You could like tell something that's, you know, manufactured versus like others where it's like, you know, your real self and all that. And
Definitely.
I feel like we do have to like tap into our real selves like in like certain ways too, because it kind of like helps within creativity and to even show our fans like the authentic side and all that. So
And the biggest thing about it is you create better music when you're authentic,
yeah,
because you're not putting yourself in a box. You're not like, oh, this verse has to sound like this, the hook has to sound like this. You're just like, what can I create? Like, what am I, you know, like, what am I feeling? What does this song really make me feel, and what's the emotion I want to convey? You know, so like, it's a huge thing for artists. To be honest.
For sure, man. And you know, we just have like some questions like left for a bit too. But you know, from seeing your social media posts, you know, you seem to be more of a performer at like, you know, by performing at like many shows in Toronto, like
Mhm.
the Offbeat Smitty show, like a couple like free events here and there. The last event like at a supermarket, which is like I think January of like 2023 and all that. And like if this like upcoming event like later on tonight, like like we might not have this like once like the podcast drop, but like there could be like a recap and all that too. But
Yeah, yeah.
tell me even more about that progression in performing and how like that how was that experience, even diverging in that type of music and all that.
Experience as a performer, I love to have like fun on stage. That's my biggest thing. I love to connect with an audience, and I love to have a fun on stage. So yeah, it was a beautiful thing. I was able to start performing at a pretty young age, at like 16. I was already doing my thing, 18, and then like by 19, when I came back, I was living in the DR for a bit. When I came back, bro, I was street performing.
Oh,
I was street performing. I got my 10,000 hours on the street. And then that really gave me the confidence to actually just rock any fucking mic. Like I don't care. Like this is my shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm here to whatever. If it's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes, whatever you give me, I'ma just do my thing. And like I'ma let people know who I am.
Nah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
Because we don't really see like a lot of like performers, like even like street performers too. Because the last person I had was like Master Inferno, and like he's been performing like all over the city, like ever since like no like actual like music on platforms, but like everyone will see him like on the street and all that, which is kind of like amazing to see and all that. So
And I feel like it's a balance, because
Yeah.
it's like as an artist, you still have to be an artist. So
Yeah.
like that was just a stepping stone for me to just kind of break out of my shell. So it's just like now I feel like even if you put me in front of a crowd of like 10,000 people, I'm
Yeah.
still gonna do my best, give it my all.
Yeah, nah,
Yeah.
for sure. And is there like any like venues like in the city or like all over the world that you would like to perform in like someday and all that?
Definitely. I want to do Lee's Palace. Like I want to hit up Lee's Palace. That's like one of my goals within the next couple of years to actually be able to do a show there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think Nirvana performed there and all that.
Yeah.
Xavier Wolf kind of performed there like a while back too. Like a lot of like rock bands and like other artists too and all that. So yeah, it is like a major like venue for like a stepping stone and all that. Phoenix as well too. Like
Yeah, Phoenix Concert Hall, like all of the bigger ones in Toronto. Like I feel like I still I haven't touched that level yet, but I'm on the I'm on the right track there because I'm
sure.
starting to be able to pack out bigger venues like 150 to 250
True.
200 capacity. So it's just like a stepping stone, yeah.
Nah, for sure, man. Nah, 100% too. And you also talked about like living in DR for a bit too. So how's it like? How's it like? Like living in that specific country and like just like even tapping in with the environment from there.
It's a whole new world, bro. It's a whole different world. The people are so happy. Like the people are very happy, and it gives you a good perspective on life because people who have so little, they put a smile on their face every day and they're able to just trot on and give thanks, really. So it's just that really installed that into my brain. It's like
True.
if people who have nothing can wake up every day and be happy, why are people in the West who have $1 million homes who are, why are they sad? Why? So
Sure.
yeah.
And like the nature and everything else too, it's kind of more homogenous like in a way too because you get the beach side and all that. You get like the palm trees, you get like
Trust
like
me,
the
bro.
greenery and all that too.
And a
like,
gal, bro.
true.
Trust me.
Are you like
Yeah.
also like fluent in Spanish like while you like live there too and all that?
I was learning, but I'm definitely not fluent, but I can understand a lot. Yeah.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
And as far as like the Toronto GT Canadian music scene and all that, like how do you feel about it? Like at the moment, do you feel that there should be some changes on the direction of where the scene should go to, or do you feel like it's kind of like fine the way it is?
I definitely don't think it's fine the way it is. I definitely don't think it's fine the way it is. The scene in Toronto is very funny because there's like two sides of it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, there's like the street side, and then there's like the conscious side or like the more indie or underground or what they call underground side, which is not very underground, but and like the street side, it's like there's a lot of gatekeepers and not as many opportunities as the indie side, I'd say. So it's weird. It's a very weird thing. It's like the cap is like Drake on the street side. It's like you go up levels, and then you kind of get to that kind of elevator in a sense. But with the indie side, there's like so much potential, but there's not enough spotlight.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. There's so much talent within the city and within the GTA, but there's not enough spotlight. People aren't able to actually get their voices out. It really needs to change in that aspect, you
Yeah.
know? And there needs to be funding for artists.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Like, there's so many talented artists who are ready to take the main stages all across the world, but they don't necessarily have the backing or funding to actually do that, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is like a little bit of a spotlight that is like shining through, but it's not really enough to like. I noticed like a couple people like are like in that underground like indie side are kind of getting like the shine too. I know this kid named Quasi who just had a song on the like I think from the blog performance, like it's been getting like traction too. And there were like other artists too that are on like other like like playlists and all that too. So but I feel like that there should be more of a spotlight shone, like even like in that scene too, because there was like a lot of talent, like 100% too, and like I think it kind of stopped like at that bag too, because like it kind of blew up like in 2016, 2017, and then just kind of ended like when Smoke Dog when Smoke Dog died for a bit too. So I don't understand like that there should be like a lot of like shine like either way too. So
Yeah, for sure. And there's so much potential for it because there's already the artists here and they're capable. It's just about actually getting them on that platform because it's like there hasn't been a mainstream artist that really co-signs these amazing artists like Mustafa, who like who are not necessarily underground, or like Hawaii Mighty, or like people who actually promote conscious things in that aspect. They're not really given the same, same
yeah, exposure
exposure. Yeah.
like a Drake or a Pressa and all that
Yeah.
type of stuff too.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
literally, because
And
and it's like I feel like the biggest thing is people think that's what Toronto rap is, and that's the biggest thing. It's like when people think about Toronto, they think about Drake or they think about Pressa or like
yeah,
this street scene, the street auto tune scene. I think that's what it is.
yeah,
But the real thick of Toronto, the real culture of Toronto is so vast and so wide, and it's like has so much culture and so much depth within it. Like you could literally see artists of all different backgrounds, all different mediums, all different genres, and they're very good at their craft.
exactly.
They're very, very good at their craft, but they just, they're just not there yet in terms of the exposure.
No, I
Yeah.
know what you mean, man. And in terms of like mental health and everything like that too, it's important to always like check on your mental, like check on other people's like mental too and all that. Like how do you deal with your mental health as a person, like in your position with everything going on in life, with hosting like events, by working on music and like keeping like a balance, like social life and so forth. Have you ever felt at times it could be like overwhelming and all that?
Definitely, definitely. There's no linear path for an artist. It's not like, oh, if I do this thing, then this thing will happen. It's like it's a lot on chance and a lot on risk, and that definitely has a huge impact on someone's mental health because they could put their all into something and not get much out of it, and they could put their all into something and get a lot. So it's really just about finding that balance. But for me, definitely I have some self care routines that I like to produce. I mean, that I like to do for myself. I like to meditate. I like to go out in nature. I like to take walks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to be able to actually just talk to people. I feel like heart to heart talks is such a healing thing that people really need to do. And yeah, also I like to work out. I feel like
Nice.
moving my body,
Yeah.
it really just takes away a lot of the stress.
Yeah. I know what you mean, man. And I kind of agree too, like walking and like even like working out too. Like I've been working out like a lot more recently too. So
That's dope.
yeah, so kind of like helps like with that change too, with weight loss, with what you're inputting in your body, and like even like the effects like afterwards too. Like people can go to saunas, people can do like massage therapy, all that type of stuff too. And yeah, it's like very like beneficial like throughout the way, like depending on what like gym you're going to and what your regimen is and all that. So
Yeah, and like the biggest thing about self-care is like you have to give yourself a fighting chance.
yeah,
Like like you have to eat the right things. You have to take that walk. You have to
Yeah.
go work out. You got to do your deep breathing. You got to do these things so then you don't fall into that trap of depression,
Yeah.
of self-critical, like being self-critical, just overthinking, the anxiety. That comes a lot as being just being with it, just being an artist. That comes a lot. So just being able to take care of yourself and have a regimen is very important. Yeah.
Nah, 100p and all that. And as far as like what you have like going on next, like do you have any other like music or other stuff that you have like going on like next and all that? And do you have any like closing remarks you'd like to say and all that?
For sure. So I got a freestyle that I'm dropping soon within like the next week or two. It's like not it's a song, but I freestyled it. So it's complete, but yeah. So I'm dropping that within the next 2 weeks. It's called the Open Heart Freestyle, and it's gonna be a little video on that, and a little bit of live video. Y'all gonna see it, and yeah, I'm also gonna be throwing. Well, what we're also doing is throwing something called the Moonrise Cipher every month. It's a local cipher within. It's a cipher with hip hop MCs, vocalists, all people from different genres, and there will be a showcase with a live band. So you have that different aspect of people improvising and live jamming out, and then actually have like a proper showcase. So that's gonna be every month that we're running through the Real MCs. Shout out to Block.
Nah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And I'm guessing the next one's like in April because like the one we're doing, it's actually like tonight actually. So.
Yeah. So the next one's gonna be in April, and then May, and then June is gonna be the last one until we transition over to the Sunset Cipher. So like yeah, it's gonna be dope.
Nah, for sure, man. And Dran, thank you like for pulling in and all that too and all that. It's a pleasure
appreciate it,
to
man.
like have you on to even like showcasing like this podcast to even like speaking more about your story and all that. And we'll definitely like do more soon and all that. And to showcase like like a lot of like dope scenes like in the city and all that. So yeah, for sure, man.
Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
And this is Josh, also known as Yashu, of episode 81 of TLOY Talks. You can get this on all platforms: Spotify, Buzzsprout, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, much more and all that. Make sure to kind of give it like 5 stars or whatever stars you can on Apple Podcasts. Check it out, like even on Spotify too. Like you can also do like some ratings from there and all that. We're almost like heading to 100 soon, so definitely tap in and all that. And this is Josh, also also known as Yashu, with DRAN&THELAND, episode 81, signing off.
Peace.